not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. It would truly help me out to beat that YouTube algorithm. So, this month is spooky season, and we have a lot more really good spooky cases and stories coming your way. But today we have just a regular true crime case. This is also a more recent case as well, and I felt this one deserved to be highlighted too. I recently read about this case in the news and was honestly quite surprised that this case was not, I guess, just didn't have as much attention on it when it first happened over the summer. So let's dive into today's case. We are going to be discussing the disappearance of Daniel Robinson. So Daniel Robinson was born on January the 14th in the year 1997. Daniel was born missing part of his right arm, basically from this portion of the forearm down. This did not stop Daniel, however, and he lived a completely normal life. Daniel grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and he eventually showed up at Caitlin's house unexpectedly. Then he told her over text message that he couldn't stop thinking about her once he had arrived. Caitlin was rather uncomfortable with this. She, obviously did not expect him to randomly show up at her house. And from everything I have found, it didn't seem as though Caitlin and Daniel had really kept in contact after they had hung out that first evening. Then on June the 20th, Daniel told Caitlin over text that he loved her. Caitlin then told him she was uncomfortable with him showing up at her house unexpectedly that one time, and then she also told him, "I don't see us hanging out together anytime soon." After this, Daniel showed up at Caitlin's house unannounced yet again. Caitlin ended up speaking to the police about this, and they told her about the stalker laws that were in the area and suggested that she make an official complaint. Around this time, when Daniel was texting Caitlin and professing his love for her, he also texted his sister at one point saying he had an emergency. Of course, his sister responded by immediately calling Daniel. However, Daniel did not answer the phone. His sister called over and over, and each time he ignored her calls. Then, according to his sister, now I'm not sure when this happened. I'm not sure if she lived in Phoenix or if this was way prior. But at one point, Daniel had gone over to his sister's apartment and apparently sat in her apartment for 30 minutes without saying anything, and then just randomly got up and left very abruptly. Everything that was happening around this time period was extremely out of character for Daniel. He was very bright and smart and responsible, and so everything going on just seemed very odd and off. Daniel had also told a co-worker about Caitlin and had said he was in love with someone that, in his words, he wasn't able to have. Daniel's co-worker claimed that he wasn't making sense at all. During this time, his friends and co-workers seemed to become more concerned with him. There was even an incident at a restaurant where Daniel would attend frequently, and the waitress who knew him said Daniel just seemed off compared to his usual self. On June the 22nd, Daniel texted Caitlin one more time, asking if she hated him. Caitlin responded with, "I don't hate you, but please leave me alone." On June the 23rd, still in the year 2021, Daniel arrived at a work site in Buckeye, Arizona. Buckeye is a suburb just outside of Phoenix, to the west of it. The job site that Daniel was working at that day was a place pretty much in the desert, kind of in the middle of nowhere, that builders were hoping to develop on, so they were running a few different tests and just looking at various items out there. Daniel was scheduled to meet up with a pump technician named Ken Elliott, and Daniel had never met or worked with Ken before. I'm not sure what exactly they were planning on doing together that day, but it was definitely scheduled that they would assist one another at the job site. Daniel and Ken met up between 9 and 9:30 that morning. After Daniel arrived, Ken said that Daniel seemed to be acting rather strange, and this is coming from someone who had never met him before. Daniel apparently asked Ken if he wanted to go home with him to Phoenix to rest. This was within, the first 5 minutes of arriving. Ken was, of course, extremely confused, and he asked Daniel if he was okay. Daniel did not really respond to that, and they spent about 15 minutes together where Daniel just continued to say really weird, odd things that did not make sense. Then, once again, very abruptly, Daniel, after 15 minutes, all of a sudden waved goodbye to Ken, got into his car, and left the worksite. Ken was, of course, rather concerned by this incident, and he contacted the project manager. At this point, the project manager began to try to contact Daniel, and after not hearing back from him for a while, he began to contact Daniel's friends and family. Around 3 p.m. that afternoon, the project manager called Ken back and told him that Daniel was unable to be found, and that Daniel was not responding to phone calls or text messages. I believe at this point that the police were contacted, and Ken began to follow Daniel's tire tracks out of the desert area where they had been at their job site. Ken was unable to spot Daniel, and I believe eventually the tire tracks kind of gave away. But the police came out and began to search the area themselves after Ken was unable to find him. The police were then in contact with Daniel's family members as well. On June the 24th, the police asked Daniel's family to check his social media sites just to see if there had been any recent activity. Daniel's dad, David, checked his Instagram and noticed that at some point after Daniel had gone missing, he had deleted all of the photos on his Instagram page. The police continued to search in the area of the desert where Daniel had last been seen. However, they were unable to find him. Finally, on July the 19th, Daniel's Jeep Renegade was found about 4 miles from the job site by a local rancher. The Jeep was at the bottom of a 20-foot ravine, and the airbags had been deployed. Daniel's car was extremely most likely stepped on the car, but also tried to lick the car and caused it to get very odd, dirty spots on there. The rancher said that cows are curious creatures, but the rancher said when he found the car with his cows with him, it was completely clean, which means he believes the car was not there since Daniel had gone missing. It had only been placed there a couple of days prior to him finding it. Police continued to search the area for Daniel and then found on July 31st a human skull in the vicinity of the car crash. The police tested the human remains, however, the skull came back to not being Daniel's. Jeff, the private investigator, believes that Daniel was so upset about Caitlin rejecting him that he had stayed up all night the night of the 22nd and played video games. After this, Daniel had shown up to work extremely tired and burnt out, and then decided to drive into the desert to take a nap in his car, where no one from the job site would be able to find him. Unfortunately, Jeff believes that, an unsavory person came across Daniel sleeping in his car, or that Daniel happened to drive into something that he should not have seen. I know that out in that area, there can be a lot of drug activity or illegal activity that can happen in the desert. So maybe he just happened upon something and this is what happened. The police never found any blood in the car, and to me it does seem very suspicious. I believe the car was staged. Even if Daniel did it himself, I still think it is staged and that there's more likely other people involved in this. I really do hope that Daniel's family gets the answers that they deserve. Unfortunately for them, they have made claims that the police were not willing to search by helicopters right away, and so, the police were a bit behind on the investigation